If you spent any time around British soldiers, especially paras, you've heard the word Ally. But where does it come from, and why do we say Allyness saves lives? Today we're digging into the history of one of the British Army's most iconic pieces of slang. The story of Ally begins in the mid-1960s in the jagged, heat-shimmering mountains of South Arabia. British forces were locked in a fierce counterinsurgency known as the Aden Emergency. The Parachute Regiment found themselves operating in the Radfan hills, a landscape of 5,000-foot peaks and 120-degree heat. In these brutal conditions, the gap between official regulations and what actually works began to widen. There are two schools of thought on where the word comes from. The legend says it emerged from a practical modification. To deal with the sun, paras shaped their berets, pulling the material forward to make a makeshift peak or shade. They allegedly adapted an Arabic word for shade to describe this, the Ally beret. However, the linguistic reality points to a different root, the Arabic word Ally. In Aden, Ally meant high, superior or exalted. Local traders used it for top-tier goods, and the paras and SAS adopted it to describe anything or anyone that was top shelf or elite. By the time they returned to the UK, Ally was firmly in the lexicon. It didn't just mean looking cool, it meant looking like a veteran who knew how to tweak his kit for maximum efficiency. The Ally beret wasn't just about looking different, it represented a fundamental philosophy, prioritising function over form, effectiveness over regulation appearance. As the years rolled on, Ally evolved beyond berets. It became the term paras used to describe any piece of kit that had been modified from its issued state to better perform its intended task. But to understand Ally, you have to understand its expensive cousin, Gucci. Gucci refers to high-end, privately purchased gear, like a brand new pair of £300 boots straight out of the box. While Gucci gear is often better than issued kit, it doesn't make you Ally. Allyness is about the application of that kit. It's the faded smock, the modified webbing, and the gear that shows you've been there. The perfect example is the roll-pin belt. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, the issued Combat 95 plastic webbing belts were notorious for snapping or coming undone at the worst possible moments. Paratroopers discovered that roll-pin belts, which were standard issue for securing heavy cargo loads and featured a robust steel mechanism and canvas construction, made for far better webbing belts. Paras would acquire these cargo straps, cut off the excess material and use them as Ally belts. They couldn't snap, wouldn't come loose, and were demonstrably superior to issue kit. Not regulation, but functional, purposeful, and an improvement. This led to the Parachute Regiment developing a reputation for looking scruffy in the field. Paratroopers would wear whatever worked regardless of whether it was issued or approved. Other units gradually adopted this approach, where they could, though most regiments were far less tolerant of non-uniformity. But the paras had established something important, the idea that operational effectiveness trumped parade ground smartness. By the mid-2000s, Ally had broadened further. It wasn't just about modified kit anymore, it had become a descriptor meaning something like cool but against the rules, a badge of honour for doing things that worked, even if they broke regulations. Fast forward to 2006, Operation Herrick 4. Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Tootal was commanding Free Para, and they were walking to a hornet's nest. This was high-intensity combat. Paras was dropped into isolated platoon houses in towns like Sangin and Musa Qala, surrounded and engaged in firefights that lasted for days. In this environment, Allyness was put to the ultimate test. The phrase passed into legend during a set of formal orders. Usually orders are stiff and technical, but Tootal knew his men. At the end of his briefing, he looked at his officers and NCOs and dropped the line, "And remember men, Allyness saves lives." It was a leadership genius. By using that specific word, he validated the regimental culture. He was saying, I don't care if you look scruffy, I care that you are effective. If a piece of non-issue kit made you faster or more lethal, it was Ally. And in combat, that effectiveness quite literally saves lives. Tootal didn't invent the sentiment, but he turned a piece of canteen slang into a combat doctrine. So what does it mean today? It's a statement of priorities. It says that in the chaos of contact, what matters is whether your kit works and whether it helps you bring your mates home. It's a recognition that soldiers in the field often know better than procurement officers what works. That practical experience matters more than regulations written by people who have never tabbed across a mountain in 40-degree heat. It's also become part of the wider British military culture. While the Parachute Regiment owns this phrase and its history, the principle has influenced how the army approaches personal kit. The proliferation of privately purchased tactical gear, the gradual acceptance of non-issue equipment, the understanding that one size doesn't fit all. These all owe something to the philosophy behind Allyness, but there's a balance to strike. Not everything that looks alley is actually functional. The phrase has also been used ironically to mock soldiers who load themselves down with unnecessary kit or chase tactical fashion over genuine utility. Don't fall into the trap of all the gear, no idea. If you've got the latest high-cut helmet and custom pouches, but you can't navigate in the dark, you aren't alley. You're just Gucci. Veterans say you can't buy Allyness, you have to survive it. The difference between real Allyness and just looking alley? Real Allyness is about proven effectiveness. It's the rope-in belt that actually stays together when you need it. It's the privately purchased boots that don't fall apart after a week. It's the modifications that have been tested in the field and found to work better than issue kit. Looking alley without the substance, that's just peacocking. From Radfan in the 60s to Helmand in 2006, alley and Allyness saves lives represents a continuous thread in British military culture, particularly within the Parachute Regiment. It's a philosophy that says the effectiveness matters more than appearance, that practical experience should inform how we kit ourselves out, and that in the end, what works on operations is what counts. Lieutenant Colonel Tootal's use of the phrase during Operation Herrick crystallised decades of regimental culture into 4 words that every para knows and understands. Because at the end of the day, when rounds are flying and the mission's on, alley kit that actually works might just be the difference between making it home and not.